Okay.
Oh, wait, let's just see what Beverly's talking to Ernie right
Let's
now.
wait a second.
Yeah, we'll see what she says.
What is a quorum, by the way?
Okay, he's having technical difficulties. I had the same thing on the invite. The link was not working. So he's
the wrong one.
He's taking it off the agenda like I did and typing it into the browser. So he should be here in a minute.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I had to do the same
link
thing.
didn't work.
Yes, so let's wait a minute for him to show up.
Yep, we'll give him a couple minutes. He was right there typing as I was talking to him.
Okay.
After I told him what to do.
Good.
Somebody want to call Jeff then? He's probably having the same problem.
I'll call him.
Does anybody have Judy's phone number?
I don't. Mark may.
No.
Sure.
Bev, while we're waiting, I just wanted to note that when the notice went out, the email that Mark sent, it still had Mike Patel and didn't have Lauren on it. So somewhere there's an old list that needs to be updated with emails.
Okay, I'll make sure Jen will get that updated.
Yeah, and it was just the invite, which was wrong anyway, so it doesn't matter, but just so we know.
I have Judy's phone number. I can
you give her a call?
I can give her a call.
Thanks,
Judy. I just don't know how to get in. I mean, I don't know what's the problem?
The link not, yeah.
Yeah, the link doesn't work, but you have to type, copy and paste off the agenda into your browser.
Okay, let me see. I have her cell and her home number.
Oh.
She's hooked up.
Bev, you could go to zoom.com and just type in sign in, then type in the meeting ID, right?
Well, right on the agenda starts with HTTPS.
Hi, this is Judy Ortiz.
You can copy that into the browser.
Okay.
That's the address you use.
So use the us02web.zoom?
Yes.
Or Bev,
it's
the
right
one that you sent
on the top of the agenda, right under it says join Zoom meeting. Just type that, copy and paste it into the browser.
Beverly, I've got Judy on the phone. What should I tell her?
Well, is she having trouble?
Yes, she's having trouble logging in.
All right, so on the agenda, it's on the invite link. So go on there and it starts with the HTTPS. Copy that into her browser and she can get in.
Did you hear what she said?
Hi, Ernie, hold on a second.
You know what I think I did, Bev, is I took it off of Jen's email.
Can Judy hear us? Judy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Judy, we can hear
you. Thank you. Okay. All set.
Are Brian and Kelly accounted for?
I'm here, Ernie.
Yes, everybody's here.
Okay, good. Then let's get started. You're recording?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then could you please read the rules of conduct?
Yes, we open the meeting at 7:14, Financial Planning Allocation Commission on Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. Rules of conduct for a virtual meeting. This is a web-based call, so we are operating under the following procedures. This session is both being video and audio recorded. Commissioners and staff will generally remain on mute, except when speaking or voting, and will generally be keeping their video of themselves on throughout the meeting. If a member of the public creates an audio or video disruption, they may be manually ejected from the meeting upon recommendation of staff or the chair. For public input before the meeting, please email your comments to publicinput@columbiact.org within 24 hours before the meeting.
Thank you. Now the meeting will come to order. As usual, let's begin with a moment of silence. Thank you. Now we can jump right into the budget workshop. I know that Mark from the town side and Maria from the Board of Ed side are constantly looking at their budgets. We have a lot of updated information, but is there anything that's not in the updates that is different?
Yes,
Maria.
we do. Thank you, Ernie. We do have an update on the feasibility studies for the two projects that we've been discussing on our capital request. One is the track upgrade. As you know, we had an engineer take a look to see what was actually feasible or possible for the track. What we found out is what I think many of us had a strong sense about. The number of scenarios that they tried to play out were not, the majority were not viable, primarily because of the septic placement on the school property. So what we would want to be doing is to just regrade and you know, kind of bring up to good safety and good functioning level the track itself. And then we would want to make an adjustment where we move the long jump to a different location. So our goal is, I know Mike Sylvester's been speaking with you know, the town and hoping that we could partner together and get this work done this summer, which would be, you know, I'd love to talk a little bit about the potential adjustment of our request based on that. We have at this moment, I think it's about $4,750, Bev, that
Yes.
would hope to be carried forward. And we'd like to have, you know, the total request in the capital line to move from 25,000 to 35,000. Because we think that with what we're carrying forward and that amount would give us enough to be able to make the upgrades to the track. And, you know, there's like a metal thing that goes around the track that we just want to make sure that that doesn't need to be repaired. So we're asking for a little bit more in there. So it may or may not come up to the full amount, but we think it's very close to what we would need to really bring the track to a very functional level. It's not ideal. It's not, you know, the perfect size, but it will serve the purpose that we need for our students. So I don't know if there are any questions about that before I just talk about the air conditioning.
No, so that's plus 10, but originally this project was 100,000 or something like that.
Yes, yes.
250.
Yes. Thank you, Bev, and thank you, Ernie. So yeah, so it's, you know, it's a reasonable, I hope it's a reasonable request, and it's something that's, I know, been talked about for years and years and pretty well overdue. In terms of, I'm just gonna change one thing on my screen. In terms of the air conditioning feasibility study, as we expected, it's a pretty complicated process because of the different sections of the building itself. I won't go through all the details unless people want to know the details, but roughly just the first step would be to upgrade the electrical, because before we could do any upgrades of air conditioning in any wings in the school, we would need to upgrade, I think, from the road. There would be trenching, and we would have to, have a new panel installed, and that project just itself would be $451,000. And then each section of the school is varying amounts from, you know, some minor upgrades to areas that currently have air conditioning to sections that do not have air conditioning. So each section's from 17,000 to about, I think the highest is close to like 550,000. So the total expenditure, if we were to move forward with air conditioning, is $3.38 million. And then there's, let me see if I make sure I have the total though with, let's see, yep, that would be, so it's about approximately $4 million if we were to move forward with air conditioning the whole building. So that's what we've been waiting for. It's, you know, I think the electrical piece just to start it is a fairly hefty project itself.
Maria, I have a quick question.
Of course.
What's the odds of that being covered by the American Rescue Plan?
I would say about 0, truthfully, Dick. I think it's, So I guess we still, Mark would have to jump in on this. From the town's perspective, from the school's perspective, we've received information and expect within the next week, we should have more details that they are being very specific of how we are using our funds. And those funds, you have to go through an application process. And then it is about primarily improving experiences for kids. Even if it were to look at, if we said the air conditioning was a COVID specific upgrade, I don't expect that we would be receiving any more than $200,000 to $300,000 from the schools. And honestly, I would be putting those funds at this moment toward children versus the air conditioning. And that's not saying that I don't think air conditioning is an important, critically important environmental support to our children. I do believe that. It's just at this moment, the gaps and academic gaps and the mental health and behavioral needs of our students would override that in my planning. I don't know if the town would be able to use any of the funds that they expect to come in your direction toward a school project or not. So I can't speak to that question.
I cannot either. I don't have any direction at all yet.
So what's your thinking short term, Maria?
In terms of the air conditioning specifically?
Yes.
Short term is for me, my recommendation to the board would be to maintain the current the units that we have in windows that meet the needs of specific students and staff based on ADA accommodations, and put air conditionings in any location right now that we're concerned about the humidity level and the maintenance of the building. And then I think the board really needs to have this in-depth conversation going forward. We do have a board meeting on the 17th. So the feasibility study, the details of it will be sent to the board and they'll have an opportunity to discuss it and to consider what they'd like to do, for the long term and what they'd like to bring back to FiPAC. I do think there's a strong commitment to pursuing this topic for students and for the health and safety of students, for their ability to learn well in an environment that's comfortable and helps them focus. But I think at this moment in time, I'm not sure that where we would land with requesting funds to remain in capital. So I think there's more conversation to have, if that answers enough.
So are you thinking that we would not include any funds for that in this year's budget, this coming year's budget?
So I'm looking at my board acting chairperson and my other board member about this question. So if it's a hard thing to answer for me, I mean, if I would like to see some money stay in the capital for this project, but I also understand there are competing demands with all aspects of town right now in town departments. So I know that the priority may be other than that it may need to come out of capital. I think I'm seeing shaking of heads from Mike is understanding. I know it's a hard removal, but I do, if that's where we are in this moment of time, I would say it gets removed from capital at this moment and we talk as a board. The board talks about what's the long range plan here.
How much is in there? I forgot.
It is. It was for 50,000. We cut it from 100,000 to 50,000, and then I was assuming that we would, because of the request for the track to have an additional 10. Technically, if you were going to remove it, it'd be a savings of 40,000. Does that make sense? Ernie, I don't know if Mike had any comment to make as our acting chairperson. Do you want to hear from Mike? Mike, you're free to talk.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hi, Mike.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here. So no, just simply to say, I think we're in agreement, Maria and Christine, I think we're in agreement as well regarding this round. So, if it's something I think like you said, we believe strongly about in terms of the educational environment, that students need to be successful. But, it's something that we can, we can move to the next round given the current situation.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Christine.
FiPAC, any questions?
I have a question about the overall, the two topics. I'm in agreement that the air conditioning, because there's no definitive decision about it, it should be deferred. But on the track, is there any reason you can't just pay for it this year with the money that you have excess? Why do we need to put it in at all?
Yeah,
it's such a small relatively small amount.
Sure. I mean, I'll defer to Bev a little bit on this, but it will be a different fiscal year. So it would not be completed before July 1. I mean, it won't even be started. If we can manage it between the town and the schools, it would be later in the summer. But Bev, do you want to?
I think it would be a little difficult if some of the work was going to be started this year and get the project going. You could encumber it, but it's not starting till after July 1. So there's no way, I think even the auditors wouldn't accept that. We'd have to put it into next year. Because it's typically the work, all the work is being done next year. So it has to be done in that fiscal year.
So
they can't even buy the material. There's no way to put there's no place to put the material yet either. So
is there some assurance of how much is going to come back? I know that we were looking earlier in this process that there was about 800,000, but the board had decided to spend about 400,000. The 800,000 of excess money in this year's budget for the Board of Education.
No, it was never that high.
We're about, I think
it said 811 on the sheet, so maybe I misread it, but.
Yeah. No, it was, I think at 1.6 or close to it.
Yeah, it was about 6 and they've already encumbered and started stuff. So it's starting to come down. Haven't had a chance this week to do another projection, but Marie and I have to review again some of the spending costs, but right now in the budget, it is 100 and we're thinking it may go high up just because we're starting to change what's going to be spent this year. So
do we have a good projection of what's going to come back from the Board of Education in the end of June?
No,
not even a rough number.
Well, right now, the minimum right now is 100,000, but we have to look at some of the projects that are coming up and stuff, and I have to revamp the projection maybe by next week or the next FiPAC meeting. I'll have a number.
I thought it was higher than that 2 weeks ago in our meetings.
Yeah, it was a lot higher.
Yeah.
Like 400 that we were expecting.
Oh, no. No.
Oh, well, then someone misrepresented because that's what we were told.
By who?
We were talking about the $800,000 and then Bev said you guys were planning to spend about 400,000. So I did the math, 800 minus 400 is 400 left.
Yeah, I mean, what I can say is it's always been about 500 to 600,000 and Bev had factored in 100,000 in the baseline with Ernie, assuming that would come back. We had, as I referenced at our last meeting, or the meeting before, 2 building projects, 2 capital projects that we removed. One is the countertop project with sinks and the other is the ceiling tile project. So that between those 2 projects was about $60,000. And the other project was removing from the appropriated budget the devices, the laptops and Chromebooks, which was up to 180,000. So that's what we knew we were going to expend from the 600,000. But Bev is working on an update right now. So we should have that next week. And if there are more funds that we can return, we will absolutely do that. But it's just not there yet.
Yeah, I don't remember the 800,000. I'm not sure.
I don't remember.
I'll look at my old documents.
Okay. But Maria's still going to tell you we can't promise you any more money at this point.
I wish I could. And if I can, I will. I honestly will. I just remove those things from the budget so it wouldn't come in front of you and inflate our initial request. I didn't want to do that.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Anybody else? Okay, back to the budget in general. In our package, there's a little table that shows basically the future capital appropriations, and then has a summary of how we got to where we are today in terms of what's in the budget document. Most of these numbers these are Bev's numbers. They tie back to the supporting documents that we got over the last couple of weeks. So basically, if this is done right, the amount to be raised by taxes, what are we talking about? Produces a mill rate of 30.62.
Ernie, I'm sorry, but I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Testing.
Thank you. That's better. Sorry.
Okay, budget document shows a mill rate of 30.62 before any FiPAC action. I just brainstormed a few options at the bottom. You could take 631,000 from the general fund to reach a mill rate of 0. We talked a little bit about budgeting the use of some ARP money to replace lost revenue. If we do that, that would require less of a withdrawal from the general fund. We could reconsider budget reductions. We got a little bit tonight with the 40,000, or we could increase taxes. So throw the floor wide open to FiPAC.
Ernie, can I go? Can I say a couple things?
You can say 3 things, Dick.
Okay. I had a long discussion with Mark today, and also I went over all of the documents that were issued. And I mean, one of my goals, as I've said, is to keep our increase in mill rate at 0. So based on what Mark was sharing, to keep it at 0, we either have to cut $598,000 or take that from the fund balance. Now, Mark, is that accurate?
Beverly, do you want to share? Do you have the ability to share what Dick is talking about that might help everybody?
Yep, I'm trying to bring it up.
Because I'm afraid we might all be looking at different versions of the budget.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so the top of this is basically where we're at with the mill rate, 30.55, and without using any fund balance. So I went ahead and made a chart. So if we were, so this is what we need right now without taking into account the 40,000 change for the Board of Ed capital. So right now it's
I'm sorry, Bev, I misunderstood that. You said this includes the 40 or does not include the 40?
No, but I can add it in right now, so if that helps.
Yeah, maybe
work it next. Okay, you have a
make it 558. Yeah.
Well, let's hold on a second. Can you hold on a second?
Yep.
The document, the March 22nd draft had 14,978 amount to be raised by taxes. How do we get to the 14,946? It's about 32,000. Is there another 32,000 adjustment?
Yeah, that came in your packets. That was the Board of Selectmen. Last week we reduced, it's in the packet today, $33,200 was taken out basically of the budget. The elderly services, we reduced the gasoline by $5,000. The tax collector removed $500. You know, various departments gave about a couple $1,000. The fire department reviewed their budget with us again, and they removed $23,000 from their appropriation next year. Part of it was for maintenance, building maintenance, which the town should be covering, and the other was to buy some equipment this year instead of putting it into next year's budget appropriation. So that took out 23,000. And then there was a change in, like, the Zega farm budget went down 500. So basically the departments gave back about about $10,000 that we were able to reduce in the town budget. So that's the difference.
Okay.
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 Okay, so what we would need to do is either cut 598 or take that from the fund balance. And my understanding is that if we take 598 from the fund balance, that would leave our fund balance at 18%. Now, I know that I've been involved in town government for almost 20 years now, and I know that we've had a goal of around 15%, which is lower than the 18%, obviously. And we've been actually as low as 7% in our fund balance. So I guess I think both the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed has worked hard at cutting a lot of stuff, a lot of the capital projects from the budget. And I'm not sure we can make any more cuts. And I guess what I'm thinking is, and I don't know if we need to decide today, but what I think I would support is taking that 598 from the fund balance and leaving a fund balance at 18%, which actually I think is very, very healthy fund balance.
Now I'm totally confused. What am I looking at on the screen?
Okay.
This is the,
I bet, Bev, you know what you're.
yeah, this is the best one to look at, Ernie.
It really, the 598. There.
So this is what I calculated earlier today, and this is what Dick just explained. So
okay, I get it now.
Yeah, you get it now? Okay. So
14,347 is the target. 14,347.
yes. So yes, if we wanted, that's the target amount to raise by taxes. So, but then we can certainly take out 40,000. Let me fix this. Did I do that right?
No,
nope,
you went the wrong
the
direction.
Wrong way.
Went the wrong way.
I'm trying.
Parentheses, maybe?
There you go.
There.
Okay.
So if we take out the 40, it's actually 558, and we'll have a fund balance of 18.32%, providing all the projections I put in for revenue and the departments come through. And of course, the fund balance will go up if the Board of Ed and the town also give more back at the end of the year. And I'm anticipating that probably will be, but I can't formalize those numbers quite yet. So still a little early. But yeah, so if we do the 558, you'll still have 18.3%. And I know Carol is still collecting money. She came in today and said she said she had a 98.6 collection rate as of the end of April. So I think she's going to anticipate a little more coming in. So we're doing fine, and the town permits are coming in higher than expected. And usually each department gives back a little bit too on the town side. So I'm looking that this fund balance may increase once all the numbers come in by the end of the year. So,
percentage-wise, what's 558,361 divided by 49,183?
49,180. Wait, say that again. 558,361. Yeah.
Divided by the value of 1 mil, 49,183.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
1.14.
So if we did all this from the fund balance, we'd be basically taking 1.14 mils out of the fund balance.
Which I think the goal was, I think Kelly had mentioned she didn't want to do more than 1 mil. So.
Well, that's why I wanted to make sure we understand what we're looking at.
Yep.
So Kelly, you can weigh in if you choose.
Well, I mean, I still feel strongly that we shouldn't be going over 1 mil, especially when we're talking about the possibility of having some large projects. I mean, in the next few years. And I know that as a general rule, we don't need to have a lot of money in our capital, in our undesignated fund, because we want to keep that, in the 15% range. But when we know that we're planning for big projects, we should be saving for those. So I think we should not be taking as much out of our undesignated fund. And I think we could reduce, the Board of Education does tend to have extra money at the end of the year. If we reduce their budget a little bit from what they're requesting, I think, they'll end up with, if we go down to the 1%, like if we dropped 110,000, that would be 1 mil, about 489. And then we could take the 1 mil out. And I think that would be a fair, allow us to save more in the undesignated fund for the big budget numbers in future years.
I have a question based on what you say, Kelly. If the Board of Ed has money left over at the end of the year, I think that's normally tuition money. And doesn't that automatically go back into the general fund? So I'm not sure what difference it would make. If there's money that's left over and it goes into the general fund, then the town decides how to use it. It's like putting money back into the unfunded or the fund balance.
Right, but by increasing their budget, we increase the MBR. So next year we'll have to give them the same amount, even if they don't need it. So I think if they're gonna, if they have extra, and I know that as we all do, they make sure that they have a little extra so that they don't lose money, which is, it's typical. That's how I do my own budget at home. You pad it a little bit to make sure that you have enough. But I think we've seen that there typically is a little bit left over at the end of the year. And so if we don't increase them quite as much as they're asking, we reduce their budget by the 110,000. I think that would put us in a pretty good place. And we can't pick and choose which numbers get deducted for them. All we can do is approve a bottom line number. That's why I'm just picking a flat bottom line number, not picking a particular item.
I know that, but I think that most of the time, and Maria can maybe address this, but I think most of the time, any significant money left over is simply the tuition money. You think you're saying that
it's not always. There's other monies too. And they often find other projects to spend money on because they have the extra money. So they do things that they can do, like they're doing with the technology, the 180,000 this year. So there are usually more than what we get back than they need to spend in the budget. And even if it's 500, as they were just saying a few minutes ago, that they may have about an extra 500, but they're going to spend some of that. And so they're only going to have about 100 to give back. There often is a gap there. So I don't think it will hurt them if we reduce the budget a little bit.
Well, I'd like to hear from Maria about all of that.
Ernie, are you okay for me to speak to it?
No. Of course, Maria.
I'm happy to nod if you'd like. So I can only speak to, my first year, the budget process had begun. I can speak to primarily last year and this year. Last year, the overages were primarily due to transportation, adjustments in placement costs, things that we were not paying for because of COVID. So we had significant overages from that. The same is to be said for this year and I know Bev spoke to that a few meetings ago. We had adjustments in staffing because we hired staff who were at a lower rate of hire. That has been adjusted to actual people in next year's budget. We had a reduction in transportation, sports, after school activities because we did not do that. And that was about 40,000. COVID reimbursement was about 100,000, which could take off some of our current expenses during this year. And our special education tuition cost came down. It's been adjusted to be actuals. And Google moving us from one platform to another didn't occur, which is 40,000. So our overages are known why we were over this year. That is not the case that I expect moving forward. And we have really, I know we say padding, I don't have padding. I mean, it is what it is in those lines right now. So again, if you tell me please to go back and cut, I will cut. But what it will be are the $25,000 for school expenses for the whole school, and then it will be staff because we don't have anything. Bev, I mean, is there anything else? Because insurance, there's not wiggle room any longer. We cut that out. And then it's based on the actual students who are projected in placements. I don't know how to answer that other than and our needs this year because of COVID, Kelly, we have an increased need of mental health provided services for next year. We need to have a different 2 additional sections for 8th grade and for 5th grade based on student needs. Those are not things that I can not have in place, and that is staff. So again, I say that I will, of course, bring to the board and address anything that FiPAC asks us to, but I just need you to know the implication of that.
But
And I think
thought
I'm
you
always
said
good to come and cut. I'm, you know.
Okay, based
I
on
thought
what
that was covered by ARP, the additional staffing you said last week.
One
2 weeks ago.
position is added through the funds, like 1.2 probably, because it's 101,000 that comes from the ESSER 2 funds. And it's very specific how we have to use it. It's for recovery, loss recovery, and gaps in student achievement. And the money that we'll be getting, hopefully with ESSER 3, might be twice that amount, but it'll be to extend those services for multiple years or to enhance those services. It's not to supplant the budget. So right now I have budgeted what we need to, and it's one increase of 1 staff member offset by grant funds. So I haven't asked for any additions in this budget. Like there are no new initiatives or additions. It's just rolling over our flat budget and maintaining what we currently have.
Actually, Maria's convinced me. It doesn't sound like it makes sense to cut from the Board of Ed budget. And I mean, the other thing is, and I've always felt very strongly about this, I think one of the most important things a community does is educate its kids. And I want to make sure they have adequate resources to do that.
Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
So essentially we're talking about $69,000. And you know, that's really the difference. I mean, we're looking at $69,000 on a $17.8 million budget. So we have it in the bank. We're in decent shape that way. We're not borrowing any money. So to me, it just seems silly to dig our heels in the sand over whether it's 1 mil or 1.14. If the idea is that the money we have to keep in mind for future projects and things of that nature, then I think the proper move is to raise taxes rather than pull from the fund balance, because that would be for future revenues for future projects. I think we're in agreement that we don't want to do that. So, you know, I'd say that keeping it the same and, you know, borrowing the 558 versus 489 seems like a reasonable avenue to go.
Anybody else?
I have a question. Might be kind of a basic question, but so this is assuming that we're not using any of the ARP funds on this.
Seems like it.
Right now. So I'm just wondering why. I mean, if we have them available, I feel like that would be one of the better solutions.
Well, let me sort of deal with semantics here. We have assumed we're going to use $355,000 of ARP money because we took those projects off the original budget, and we're assuming that we will do the projects, but do it with ARP money as soon as it's available, or as soon as we have guidelines. So that's what we're assuming, that we're going to spend at least $355,500 next year.
So, but that's not with the revenue replacement is what I was, as far as like the options.
Oh, we haven't talked about revenue replacement,
okay.
And I'd like to talk about that.
Okay.
But we're assuming we're going to use some ARP money for $355,500 worth of projects. But we sort of danced around the idea of budgeting some revenue replacement by using ARP funds. And if you'd like to hear about that or talk about it now, I'm all ears. I'm for it.
I think we need to, because we're wasting time talking about expenses when we haven't really got, I think that top line number is not correct if we're going to adjust the revenue. So let's talk about that.
What I've been hearing, and I've talked to Mark and other people, we're not going to have that answer. We're not going to have that answer before we have to make decisions on our budget. We're not going to know how much.
No. Let me stop you there. You can make a decision on your budget, and you can be wrong. What that comes down to.
Yeah.
Right.
Good point.
And there's no punishment for being wrong.
So find $69K in lost revenue.
I think we talked about it last time, and we talked about quantifying, and Mark gave us a number that was around, was it 144,000?
I thought it was like 41. I
No,
thought
it's
it was
bigger than that because the interest income would have been about 89,000. Is it in the minutes? I don't have the minutes in front of me.
I know it got up as high as 200 and something, but then they brought it down for.
Yeah, I must have misunderstood because I thought we started talking about just lost revenue, not from the interest, but we were just talking about operationally. We were safe with just operationally.
Well, see, we never made a decision on what
Yeah,
we thought.
we talked about it. Yeah, we didn't make a decision.
We didn't come to an agreement as to what we're comfortable with.
69,000.
Mark,
okay, 70.
I'm looking for it right now, but I'm thinking it was more in the 40,000 to 60,000 range because we're being conservative, mainly replacing park and rec losses and interest income.
And the preschool.
Yeah, you had $97,000 in interest income. I think you totaled 144,228.
That's what I said, 144.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 144 also, but I think we backed it. I think we backed off of that in that discussion though.
I didn't.
Okay.
So what are we comfortable with, or what were we uncomfortable with that made us back off? Does anybody remember?
I think it was the interest income.
Yeah.
Whether that would qualify, but I think it should.
Well, we don't have any rules, so why would we think we have a rule that disqualifies it?
Right.
I like the way you think, Ernie. This works.
Where are we? Let's go round table. Judy, what do you think?
Specifically about revenue replacement?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We should budget for that.
Dick?
I agree.
Oh, that's Brian, Judy, Jeff.
Yeah, I think, we're going to see that money, so we could budget that way.
Kelly?
I definitely think at least the 144, yes.
Lauren, you started this. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with the 144. Yeah, at least, I think it makes the most sense.
Okay, nobody cares what I think, but I agree with you guys. So if we factor in a 144 revenue replacement, where's that stupid chart, Bev? I think you went backwards again, didn't you?
I think you took out a zero in the 4,000 or 40,000 too.
Yeah. Yep.
So 414, 361. That sounds right. We were previously thinking it would require 558. So if you take out 144, that's 414. Which means if we choose to budget or let the budget reflect some anticipated use of ARP money for revenue replacement around 144,000. Now, if we wanted to get a zero mill rate increase, that requires 414,000 from the general fund. Is that a position we're all comfortable with? This is tentative. We're not gonna, I don't think we should even vote on this tonight. I think the idea was to have a tentative stance going into the May 12th meeting where we may have more information. And I would not be uncomfortable saying this is our tentative stance.
I think it's a good, strong position to be in. So it actually brings it, you know, we're going to use less than a mill, which is nice, which, you know, Kelly's going to like, and we still have flexibility.
Yeah, Kelly will find something else to be unhappy about.
I'm still troubled about the Board of Education budget and increasing the MBR. So I still want to get a little bit of history on how much, because Dick said it's only ever been the tuition that comes back, and I don't think that's true. I'd like to see what it historically has been, and understanding that Maria hasn't been here all that long, but I would like to see a little bit of an analysis of that before we make a final decision. But if they don't ever have extra other than tuition, then I could live with the 414. But if there is room within their budget, I would like to talk about reducing it, if that's appropriate.
So would I. That's why I was the one that brought it up in the first place. But the problem I have is there is no longer a normal. You don't know, you can't anchor anything to anything in terms of defining a trend, because the world has been different from year to year to year. So I can't, in the past, I was able to follow trends and bring up specific questions. I can't do that anymore based on the past couple of years' experience.
Can I make a comment on that?
Sure.
So, I mean, I feel like that also speaks to the danger of setting a minimum that might not carry forward and make sense for the future. Isn't that pretty much what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't know what the new norm is, I feel like, you know, raising a minimum by a lot could not make sense either.
Yeah, I follow what you're saying. So
I'm trying to articulate it the best I can.
Yeah, no, I understand what Lauren's saying. We are creating a new MBR minimum, which is pretty significantly higher than last year, which is unusual. Given that they had so much money from COVID that covered things, it just seems like it's a high amount this year. Even though they have cut, and I appreciate that they've cut, it still seems a little bit high under the circumstances. That's my only point. And I do think we should have some further analysis on that. But again, we're not voting tonight, correct, Ernie? So I mean, we don't have to have an answer today.
Well, how do you go about getting an analysis that would make you comfortable?
Well, I'd like to know what the historic trends have been at least. And I understand that the last 2 years were somewhat anomalous because of COVID. But in all of the years that I've been here, there have been an appreciable give back of at least 100,000. And they always break it out between tuition and non-tuition. So I think that would be easy to determine that.
Okay, well, you've actually seen those numbers, because we get line item budgets and we get line item final reports, and you see what the difference is. And I think at year end they do all those transfers. So those numbers have actually passed in front of your eyes.
Which is why I'm saying, based on my memory, there's been numbers, but again, my memory is not perfect apparently, because I misremembered the 800,000. So,
may I say, ma'am? I mean, may I speak, Ernie, for a sec?
If you speak English,
I will try. I'll try. I'm not like very coherent at the moment. So we do have the history that shows that we've come in under budget for, it has to be at least 5 years now. We've come in and we've cut and come in under a zero. So I want to just say that, because we're not coming in and increasing, you know, for the sake of increasing. We've made a concerted effort to do that. So this is the first year in a number of years, which I have, you know, some data that I'm happy to share again with FiPAC. This is the first year, and at this point, we're at a, what is it, 1.32% increase, which is not atypical. Most of the boards around the area, it's a 3% on up increase. So I do think we're being very responsible and fiscally responsible. So InBev does have expenditure reports for years that we can take a look at. And this is not to negate looking at that information, because of course it's public information, we should all look at it. But I also want to say the school budget is very different from a municipal budget, that the unknowns are based on actual student needs. So the ebb and flow of a budget is not based on, oh, we're asking for more than what we need and we're just not spending it. It is about, so this student didn't need the placement of X amount, or didn't need the service, or we actually didn't need the same amount of intervention. Those, or when we're scheduling, we put a 0.5 or a 0.7 of Spanish. Those ebbs and flows are not something that you can predict necessarily. So there will always be either an overage or an under each year. It's not going to be on anywhere, like it's not typically in the ballpark of exact. That's why there is typically spending toward the end of the year that I bring either, I'm like either spending or I'm freezing. A few years ago, it was freezing spending to make sure. Now it is spending, but it is going in front of the board, and the board looks at the items that we're expending and we consider what should go back to the town. I mean, all of that is part of the process. So again, it's an open book, and honestly, MBR is a minimum budget requirement. It's not the cap. And I do understand the demands in a town. So please know it is not my money, it is the community's money. But I just want to assure you that I'm being very fiscally responsible, and we're happy to provide any information that FiPAC needs.
Bev, let me put you on the spot. And I know you don't know the answer to, well, you know the answer to this question, but, and I'll make a statement, the increase, if we allow an increase of budget, of their budget this year, that does not automatically increase the MBR. Is that a true statement? Because of the complicated way they have that 5-year look back?
It would be added into the 5-year look back, and it all depends on what the credits are. And usually it's, and I think they take the biggest decreases in the last 5 years. So if it was to increase, eventually this MBR, but the increase would impact MBR in the future. But I think over the last couple of years with the decrease in enrollment, we're still okay. But again, we don't know how they calculate that all either. But
yeah, that's what I was getting at. That's another one of those unknowns. There is a rule somewhere, but we don't know what it is.
We tried.
It's not automatically a dollar for dollar increase tied to whatever we do in next year's budget.
No, and I think if the board continues a trend of increase in enrollment, that's where we're going to have the minimum budget requirement is going to be a little more firm for us. And I think right now they're keeping it that 5-year trend, and we still do have the credits from a few years that'll help keep that impact low. But eventually it's going to change, if that makes sense to you.
But bottom line is, we don't have to panic about if we're concerned about MBR, we don't have to panic about the impact, any impact next year on next year's MBR, which will give us more time to do what Kelly wants to do, or thinks we should do tons of analysis. I have no problem with that, but we don't have to do it with the next 2 weeks, I guess.
No, I can say probably in the last number of years, pretty much the money that has been coming back to the town is pretty much tuition and transportation. There have been some other lines, and that came after year end and once the transfer is done, because some of the projects that were encumbered came in lower. So those lines ended up with a slight surplus. But I'd say the majority of all that is money coming back just because of tuition and transportation. And we have tapped into those lines a little bit because the other lines in the Board of Ed came in a deficit, but we have to cover that. And it came out of the tuition and transportation, but still, even after that, there was still money coming back.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to do is make Kelly and Lauren comfortable that there's no immediate crisis, but their concerns are legitimate. And we would have time to hammer out how we should go about doing the kind of analysis that Kelly's hinting that we should be doing.
Yeah, and I do know
and I think there's an additional factor that if they give us back the transportation money, how much unbudgeted money do they spend that they don't give back. So it was not budgeted, but it's excess. So they spent it during the year and it's not transportation. So it doesn't come back. That there's always some random amount that they're doing that with. So
I
don't think just looking at what comes back is the only analysis that we need to understand.
I said we could do analysis. I didn't pinpoint the type of analysis or put any limits on it. If you're concerned about that, that can be that information is certainly public. That can be part of the research or study or whatever you want to call it.
And can I say one more thing though? In a budget, you're supposed to be allowed to adjust. It's not always cast in stone. And not to throw Mark under the bus, but we have had things that were unbudgeted and we end up doing transfers to cover them throughout the year. Same thing with the school. They have things that come up that replace what's been budgeted because they find something better or there's something more priority happens, like it's a repair or a curriculum or whatever it is between the town and the school. So the budget is just a guideline. It's nothing cast in stone. So
the spending plan.
It's a spending plan. And so you're never going to see where, okay, this is exactly what you budgeted and it's going to stay the same. It definitely doesn't happen, at least on the town and the school side. And things do come up, whether it's repairs or extra student comes in or whatever. So you're basically approving spending plans and then you're allowing the two entities to make adjustments where they feel it's needed. So it does happen.
And Bev, I'm aware of that. But when the town makes an adjustment, it gets approved for the most part by FiPAC. When the school does it, there is no oversight by FiPAC. So that's my only point, is that we're not seeing it. We're giving them a bottom line number and they could spend it at the casino if they wanted to. I'm obviously being hyperbolic, but the point is that we don't really know how they're spending it. We don't control that. And as I said, we don't need to do this analysis tonight, but I think it's something that should be done.
Can I mention one thing though, Ernie? Thank you. So if I make an adjustment in a line based on a student need, by legal regulatory requirements, I do that. If I am expending something that has not been discussed as part of the budget process with the board and it's over $10,000, that approval is going to my board. In the ultimate bottom line, the amount has been approved by FiPAC. You have to have that flexibility to run an organization with the level of budget that we have. So I guess if there are questions, all of that is in minutes. All of that has been discussed publicly. It's consistent with our policies and based on law. So we are not spending at the school level outside of the parameters of what's defined by law or board policies. We're just not. If you're making an expense adjust at the town, does select board or FiPAC adjusts? Is that the entity?
The Board of Selectmen has first approval. And then after a certain amount, if it's a transfer, only transfers go to FiPAC.
Yeah, and if we're transferring, I think at the end of the year, we ask Ernie if we're having an expense that needs to be adjusted from tuition to, because I remember those conversations at fiscal policy. We have that conversation with Ernie, but
I have no authority. I mean, state law wants it that way, that the Board of Education has that control.
So I'm just trying to reassure.
Anything, you tell me is a courtesy, and I appreciate that. But the law is written that that's the way.
I want it to be that way with everyone. That's why I've come in under, and I've tried to be really transparent with what the school's asking for, because I recognize that there are competing demands in a community, and we are one expenditure for a community that, in a large one compared to the rest of the services in a town.
Okay, I think that, not to wave you off, Kelly, but can we put this on the June agenda? And
you mean after the budget's passed? Sure, Ernie, that's fine.
Okay, fine. What else is there? Sounds like we're in a good place to go into a May 12th meeting. I mean, we're down to needing less than $1 million transfer from the general fund, which is a lot lower than in the past couple of years. So is there anything else we need to do tonight?
Ernie, this is Mark Walter. Can I confirm that we should do the legal notice for the May 26th public hearing and the June 8th town meeting that the Board of Selectmen set up last night for the annual budget?
Is there any reason why we shouldn't? I think we're going to be in a position to finalize a budget on May 12th.
Good, then we'll be fine for a public hearing on May 26th and an annual town meeting on June 8th.
Is anybody on FiPAC uncomfortable with or feeling like there's issues that we need, bigger issues that might throw us off track for May 12th? In that case, let's consider that a goal and a reasonable goal that we fully expect to meet. So you can budget the timing and all that. That's on you and Bev and Board of Selectmen.
Okay, I'll take care of it. And Maria, both those meetings will be in your gym.
Great.
Without a Zoom meeting, hybrid, we'll do it in person.
Yeah, we'll be set for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question. How do I print Bev's spreadsheet here? Can I do that?
Not from the screen, I don't think.
Not from the screen, but I can email it to you.
All right.
Yeah, would you mind sending it to me too, Bev? That'd be awesome.
Sure, I'll send it out to everybody and make a note that the 1.14 is the value of the amount needed. Yeah, I'll just move it down so it's next to.
Well, you can erase it. I just wanted to make sure we knew what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that number changed anyway.
That formula changed, Bev. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's true.
Yep.
That's true. I'll just delete that part and I'll send it. So you want it with these numbers and then I'll just leave it as is and then everybody can have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, the May 12th is put on the agenda as a tentative meeting.
Yes.
It is now a definite meeting. Do we really need to vote on that? I don't think so.
No, but the agenda said May 19th, so we're going to change that to the 26th so that everybody knows that's the date.
Okay.
But that'll get updated for next week's agenda. There is one thing you guys did not vote. Motion was to approve the minutes from
last meeting.
The last meeting. Do you want to save that till next week and do both minutes at the same time? Sure.
Ernie, you went right by it. Yep.
I'm sorry, I got too many pieces of paper here.
You know, we'll just save it for next week.
I think Bev wants to go home, so we'll wait and save it for next week. Anything else?
I want to go home. It's a far walk to the couch now.
You stop panning your camera, Bev. I bet if you pan your camera, we'll see a glass of wine sitting right next to the sofa.
Nope. I've been behaving myself today. Wishful thinking.
Shame on you.
I know. Shame on me. Shame on me.
Anything else, FiPAC? In that case, I'm going to declare the meeting adjourned.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
8:14.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.